Hey, welcome to the Stephanie Stevens Show, where I help you discover the power of communication and the keys that unlock the doors to freedom in every area of your life. Loneliness and being a single parent with a child or children with autism. Does this ring a bell for you? Perhaps not. It's something I want to chat with you very briefly about today, however, because it is common and we don't like to talk about it. And we don't like to talk about it because we feel guilty talking about it because it's something that happens to be true. And yet, if we let on to others that it is true, we might be judged. And people might say, well, that's a selfish, rude kind of an attitude. And then we'll have to feel more bad. We'll have to continue to add to the pile things that we already feel bad or guilty about, and we don't want to do that. So I just want to have a really open, honest conversation with you about how different it is to be a parent of a child, and now, in my case, an adult with autism. So when my son was originally diagnosed, by the way, this is the Stephanie Stevens Show podcast. I don't think I mentioned that yet. I'm Stephanie Stevens, and I'm so honored to share time with you. I do have a 27-year-old son with autism. I have studied behavioral therapies for decades. I was certified as a behavioral therapist. I have started 2 organizations, one for children with autism that we provided therapies for. That organization is still up and running today. However, when my son became an adult, I co-founded with my business partner an adult services program with 3 locations, strong and continuing to grow. So I do know a thing or two about life as a parent and also about services and also about therapeutics and all sorts of stuff. So if you want to know more about that, you can check out my first episode. I don't want to get too far into the weeds on that tonight. What I just want to chat with you about is this problem of loneliness. And I noticed that as I was driving my son home this afternoon, it feels like evening because where I am now, it gets dark early this time of year. And I just had this twinge, this weird hollow twinge in my gut and in my chest. And it was just the 2 of us driving home. And I knew we'd be driving home to an empty house because my other son was out at work. And it gets dark early and all of these things started landing in my lap as I drove. And I started to feel sad and I started to feel hollow. And I understood that my night was going to, in large part, predominantly be about getting him what he needs, getting him dinner, doing the puzzle that we do, playing a game of cards, and maybe a few other things as well, getting some laundry done, etc. And it just got me thinking, and I'm going to do a different podcast episode on this at some point. It just got me thinking about how very few things you and I probably actually do for ourselves on a regular daily basis. If you try to keep track of all of the things that you do for yourself, you can probably count them on one hand, like go to the bathroom. Although I wouldn't argue that's something we do for ourselves. It's something we must do. It's a function that we can't control. But, things like getting ourselves ready, does that qualify? I don't know. But just things that we enjoy, like pursuing something we really enjoy, pursuing one of our interests, pursuing one of our passions. How often during the day do you spend time doing that? Now, think just for a second, if you can, of how many things you do for somebody else. How many things do you do for your child or your adult that you still parent with autism? A day. I bet you if we try to keep track, the tally marks would fall all the way off the page. It's so much. And my friend, as a parent with a child who becomes an adult with autism, that doesn't end. Okay? And you and I can identify with this, but so few other people, more and more increasingly though, as the diagnostics increase. But not everybody can identify with that. Most people, they have their kids graduate from high school, they're getting a job, or they're going to go to college, or maybe they're going to try to mooch off you for a few years longer, whatever the case. But they typically don't experience it where their child is into their 20s, mid-20s, late 20s, 30s, 40s, etc. And you are still caring for them, providing care for them as though they were maybe an adolescent. How many people can really identify with that? I don't think many. But that leads to my loneliness conversation with you. It's going to be really, really important that as we manage the busy work of caring for, we have to, lest we slide down that slippery slope, we have to find things and cut out time and carve out time for us to engage things that spark that passion on the inside of us that are unrelated to being a care provider. I don't care if it's reading a book for an hour, taking a bath, and making sure that you're uninterrupted. And if that means doing it after they go to bed, fine. Scheduling some help. These days, I don't trust a lot of people. I don't trust strangers anymore like I used to 20 years ago to hire and vet and do background checks on and then just leave with my child. This is a different day and age. I don't have it. Maybe you do. If you do, I applaud you. I don't have that level of trust for others to care for my vulnerable adult son. So maybe that's a fault, and maybe that's why I have less time to myself. Nonetheless, asking family for help is going to be imperative if you have that available as an option. If you do have a respite service or an agency that you trust, use it. If you have a PCA or even a neighbor's son or daughter who's a young adult who can be vetted, that you can trust, honestly, a couple times a week, you're just going to need to, and so am I, be diligent about carving out that time. We have to pursue our own passion. If we're not growing, what are we doing? Right? If we're not passionately pursuing something, anything that keeps that creative spark alive in us, we will slide down that slippery slope, especially during the holidays. We will get bogged down and we will start to feel depression and overwhelm creeping in. So let's be good to ourselves and mitigate that plenty of time in advance. Let us do our due diligence right now to schedule out for the rest of this week, and then look at next week. Look at your schedule. Who can you employ or get to voluntarily help you so that you can have a couple of hours during the course of that week that you can look forward to that is just you. You doing something you love that nurtures you, your passion. It is not selfish. It is putting the oxygen mask on yourself. And I implore you and encourage you to do it. My friend, I am right along with you. Much love to you. And I can't wait to see you on the next episode.
Thanks so much for listening to The Stephanie Stevens Show. Please remember to subscribe so we can stay connected and you never miss an episode of the podcast. Oh, and if you haven't left a rating yet, please be sure to do so. It helps incredible people like you find the podcast. We'll see you on the next episode.